Hey nerds, and welcome to Flash, Theories, and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd. So this week, we feel like we got to call the episode the Once and Future Tease because they just keep dragging out the Savitar reveal. We'll get to that in a little bit, but first, highlights from the episode. Really, the big highlights for me was everything revolving around HR. HR Jitters. He bought the coffee shop and renamed it after himself. His whole book thing and that book reading was... he is far and away the most entertaining character on the show. But the other thing we learned from him is his drumsticks are just drumsticks. The fact that he left them in the lab, he wouldn't take them with him, they were part of his Team Flash equipment, they're just drumsticks. And I think it's safe to say that he isn't actually... his face is actually H.R. Wells. The Wells face is actually his face. I think that's pretty much what we got confirmed this week regarding HR, but everything HR this week was fantastic. So moving on, and the first thing to talk about, the title of the episode this week, The Once and Future Flash. There are two things being referenced here. First, the Flash issue number 79, it's actually called The Once and Future Flash. This is a story where Wally West is currently the Flash, and he thinks Barry Allen comes back in time, and it turns out it's actually Eobard Thawne. And we learn a lot of Eobard Thawne's backstory in this. We learn about how in the future there's no crime, but he wanted to be like the Flash, so he recreated the incident that made him, and he went back in time, and that's when he learned that he's killed by the Flash, and that kind of makes him go crazy. And this is after he's had plastic surgery to look like the Flash. So this is the battle that, where we learn all that. Wally has to deal with this and figures out that it's not Barry and it's Eobard. And Eobard gets sent back to the future with no memory of what happened during this. But all that to be said, I don't necessarily think we are going to get anything from this as far as Savitar's identity, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The other reference is a reference to the Arthurian legend and the once and future king. This is a reference to what is allegedly written on King Arthur's tombstone, and it says, "Here lies Arthur, king once and king to be." The kind of overall theme of that book and that story was about how Arthur had become king and he was doing everything he could to change the ways of the time where might meant right, that the strongest ruled, and in order to change it to more of a kind of chivalry-based society. So that's what that was about. Is this showing just kind of a difference between Savitar and kind of all of the evil speedsters that he's fought, and how Barry Allen goes about things? Yeah, it's an interesting parallel, but I don't think we're going to get too much from that necessarily on what is going to happen or who Savitar is. It's just, it's a clever title, obviously a reference back to that Flash issue, but also a nice reference to this book. So, next, Tracy Brand, the mysterious science who's showing up last minute to save the day. There's no Tracy Brand in the comics. Let me just get that out of the way. There's a character by the name of Tracy 13 who really seems to be more with the mystical stuff. I don't think it's her. The only other Tracy character that actually fit or was reasonably close was from the DC animated universe. Tracy Simmons. She was a scientist at Star Labs. She was a physicist, and she makes one appearance in an episode, The Greatest Story Never Told, I believe is the episode, and it has to do with Booster Gold and Tracy battling a wizard, I think, or they're just kind of helping save people. It's a great, actually, side story that tells, gives a lot of Booster Gold. If you're not familiar with him, check it out. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. But that's who this character is from, the closest parallel I can find who has a similar name, and that's so Tracy Simmons, physicist, Star Labs. It kind of fits. Next, Savitar's identity, the ongoing mystery of the season, the mystery that's been dragged on way too long. They teased us so much in those last final seconds that we were going to finally learn, and then we don't. But what did we learn? Well, in the future, we learn that Caitlin does know Savitar's identity. And then we find out at this moment, it is definitely somebody Caitlin knows, and it's somebody she trusts so implicitly that there's no discussion. She sees the person and is already, I'm in. That really, really limits who it can be. Now, theoretically, we already know it's not Wally, it's not HR, it's not Barry, it's not Joe, it's not Cisco, because we saw them all in the future. It's not Julian. Obviously, with the Speed Force and time travel and things, it could be... That's a very complicated... It would be very complicated to make it one of those characters. So, most likely not one of those characters. If we're looking back at that Flash comic, I suppose it's possible that Eobard Thawne used that technology to copy Barry's face. This is the technology he had somehow used to make him look like Wells, but that again is also really a far stretch. And since he's just been a major villain on Legends of Tomorrow, it seems really, really unlikely that they would do this as well. The most likely candidate at this point is Ronnie Raymond. Ronnie, if you don't remember who he is, was briefly in season 1 as one half of Firestorm. He was Caitlyn's fiance, the love of her life, and he was lost into the Speed Force. There was no body. They presumed he died, but the portal that was ripped open was from one Earth to another. So it makes sense that he is trapped in the Speed Force. If you remember when I've talked about the Speed Force in the past, it's essentially this multiverse cosmic entity that exists in between the universes. So if someone gets lost in between the universes, it makes sense they'd be in the Speed Force. So if you look at what happened to him and then all of the twisted things that Savitar has said, where we know he's said he's gone crazy and lost his mind like 10 times or something, it fits that it could be a Ronnie who has gone nuts, that has gone crazy. And he could blame Barry for being trapped in the Speed Force, for losing Caitlin, and then it would make sense for why he would take Iris from him, because it's the same pain and loss he felt, and he is inflicting that on Barry. So Ronnie right now is looking to be a really, really solid candidate for the identity of Savitar. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the notes below. I think it's really possible, but at the same time, there's no way of knowing for sure because we've gotten so many red herring clues, but I think this is the only thing that fits with Caitlin 100% following him and joining him and agreeing with him to, it's all that makes sense to me. So let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. And don't forget to check out my other theories and my weekly show over at goodnerdbadnerd.com. Until next week, guys, I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been Flash, Theories and Conspiracies.